This thing. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. We do not have Tom with us today. He was messaging me this morning. He's out exploring on the pyramids and having a grand old time. So we do miss him this week. We have so much to cover. Microsoft has done a lot this week. They went from having about, 10 or 15 things on the roadmap over the month of December to, maybe 10 or 15 things in January to 348 today. So we have a lot of things that have shown up in the launch category. So they went straight to launched, which was interesting. So we'll kind of start out with the canceled category and work our way up there. So let's see. So I'll start with canceled. So I'll just cover the cancels, Adam. I'll make it easy for us. So they've canceled personalized onboarding with OneDrive. They were going to ask users some questions, and then based on the questions, they were going to get a tailored onboarding experience. I wouldn't worry too much about this. I think if you watch what's going on, with Project Cortex, if you watch what's going on with other things, they're trying to automatically do things based on users, based on who they are. So I don't think that this is going to go away because they don't want users to have an amazing OneDrive experience. I think this is probably going away because there's probably a better way for users to have a great onboarding experience in OneDrive. So that particular feature is going away. Another one that's going away is push notifications for shared lists. This one's a little bit of a bummer because this would be great. This was going to be customers who are sharing Microsoft's to-do would receive shared push notifications for task creation and completion. They're saying it's removed though because it's a duplicate, so that's good, not really going away. And then additional participation of participants to meetings inside of chats, inside of Teams, that's also a duplicate. So those are just two duplicate items that are going away, so nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about that on that front, and I'm sure we'll be seeing an update on the OneDrive one coming soon. So nothing to be too bummed about there. They're canceling the feature they hadn't really told us much about, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. But from there, we can move on to in development. And Adam, I'll let you kind of start, and we'll just kind of go through our list. Like I said, we have a really long list today. Won't be able to hit on all of them, but go ahead,
We'll be
Adam.
talking for the next 6 hours now.
Yeah.
So, one of the ones true to my roots of, someone who kind of grew up in email. They don't give a lot of details here, but Microsoft announced that they're updating outbound spam settings. So one of the things that they've always done is when you're sending out mail, Microsoft has like 3 rules that they care about when you're using their servers to send. You have to authenticate to show who you are. You have to not do bulk sending, so you can't go through and send out newsletters to your users, so you don't want to get in trouble. And you can't send what they consider spam. And so that's always kind of a moving target as they kind of get a better understanding of what it is. But they basically said they're rolling out new updates to the outbound spam settings is going to give it a little bit more of a complete picture. And basically they think keep their servers in better standing. So ultimately this is a good thing, I think. You shouldn't be sending out outbound spam anyways. And them getting better at detecting it is going to kind of go after those bad actors that are, getting a trial account, setting up a whole bunch of, crap, and then affecting how likely your actual legitimate mail is to be delivered. So happy to see them going through and updating it. I think ultimately it's a good thing for all of us.
One that I think is really cool for our users and our user base is Microsoft Forms being available for the Department of Defense. So this is one that we, on our team, we do a lot with end user adoption and engagement with users, and we use Microsoft Forms as a great way to quickly and easily gather data and get feedback from users. And so I'm super excited to have this as a tool in our tool set. So I'm very excited to see that in development for that DoD environment. So hopefully we'll see that coming in soon and making it to that final environment there.
Yeah, another one to pair with that too, just really quickly. This is actually for GCC, so not all the way to the DoD or GCC high, but private channels are finally coming to GCC too, which is cool. I think we'll all like that. My feelings if you've watched the show before on private channels as a whole, but regardless of my feelings, it seems like everyone wants them. So nice to see feature parity coming to GCC, which affects a lot of our clients.
That's awesome. All right, so So update to recent view on web. So OneDrive for Business, you're going to just get some updates to the recent view there. Again, just making the experience better. Also updating the modern home pages for classic team sites. So this is going to make it a little bit easier to work with those classic team sites when you're working with them. Updating on the new task experience on Outlook Online. There's a lot of these things that are coming to the clients, whether they're the client, the install client or the web client, that are coming to just make the experience a little bit easier. I think we could probably take 50 to 60 of these different roadmap items, and they're just changing something small in there and just making it a better experience. And that's great because they have so much telemetry now. They can see a button and say, why is no one clicking on this very important button that everyone should be clicking on? No one knows what the heck this really important button is anymore. Well, maybe if we make this button blue, everyone will know, So they're making little changes and things like that. So there's a lot of that coming into Outlook. Which is great. Like I said, I run an adoption and training team, so that means we get to probably refilm a lot of videos. So it's great to keep up on top of all of that kind of stuff. But nothing I've seen on the list that's going to make me totally freak out. I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to make my users totally lose it yet, except for, Adam, do you want to talk about the Bing search getting installed with the Office Pro Plus customers? This one could be a little bit, this is one that I think people really need to be aware of.
Yeah, so Tom and I mentioned this in our thing last week because it kind of caused an uproar. I'm sure Jen experienced the same thing even though she was off. Normally when you're going through and part of what we do involves us being on social media and things like that, there was pretty unified hatred to this change, but it's actually now in the roadmap after you kind of heard them going through and talking about it. But basically, if you install Office Pro Plus for your use, so Office Pro Plus is a version of the Office suite that comes with 365. Most of the time you're going through and you're doing a deployment to your users' machines. Well, now by default, when you go through and install Office Pro Plus, it's going to be going into the user settings and setting Bing as the default search engine for those users. And basically making Bing the default experience, or Microsoft Search in Bing to be the default experience. So a lot of people aren't really happy with that for a lot of reasons, as we kind of talked about last week, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. It wouldn't surprise me, this is still in development, it wouldn't surprise me if they give an opt-out feature or something like that eventually, because it's one of the things that people don't really like when you go through and start taking away their agency and taking away their choice. So this will be one we'll definitely have to kind of watch and stay on top of.
Yeah, that's definitely one that's going to be a big one that you're going to want to watch, because that is going to change user experience, and that's going to be a definite who moved my cheese, because when you start messing with people's search, you just start confusing people, even though to us it's like, okay, well, and to the average user, Google, Bing, they might not notice a difference. Microsoft Search, I get what they're trying to do. They need a lot of people to be using Microsoft Search. Microsoft Search is so powerful, controls so many things moving forward. They've made so many investments and so many changes, and you're going to get a lot more value when you're using Microsoft Search and all the extensions that come with it, but it's going to be a transition period. So we'll, of course, keep you updated on what's coming. Coming with that.
I'll throw out two more quick ones on in development just because the admin in me loves this. If I'm writing PowerShell, 99.9% of the time, the PowerShell that I'm doing is involving Exchange. They don't give a lot of details, but they basically are updating Exchange PowerShell commandlets. They say it's going to make it quicker and faster. A lot of times when you're doing iterations through Exchange, you're having to loop through all of your mailboxes and go through and pull out details. So interested to see where that's going to go long term, just because that's something that will actually impact me day to day. And the other one too, just because you guys kind of know that I love Power Automate or Flow. They announced that they're going to have new triggers coming out for Microsoft Teams for Power Automate.
I'm really excited about that one.
We'll wait to see what it is. Right now, everything you're doing in Teams is kind of at a user level. I think that's probably still where these are going to be. But I think so many companies out there, so many customers that I work with are interested and want to get into Teams, but don't necessarily have the full-on commitment of everybody, or maybe don't have the governance in place to do what they need to do. I think them bringing more tools to Power Automate is going to make an easier thing, or maybe a more palpable switch for people if we can go through and automate some of the deployment stuff for them. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, and one last one that I think is really great is Power BI Teams or Power BI in Teams interactive cards. So being able to have Power BI dashboards, reports, interactive cards. So basically people can take a Power BI report and experience actions on their data and do things to and with their data inside of Teams. This is going to be a great way to put relevant data with relevant conversations, with relevant links, news articles, and everything like that. Talk about bringing, talk about a hero experience. I hate to say it. We're getting there. I mean, it's really fantastic. So to be able to have a tab that's going to have all of my stuff all together, that's going to keep me in one simple spot, always available, always ready to go. So I'm super excited to see where they're coming with that. The only problem I could see coming with that is you're going to have to buy some more licensing, because then people are going to want that. Then you're going to be upscaling. I mean, it depends on who you ask if that's a problem, but that's going to be making reports more available and just a great way to service them up for people. So I'm excited about that. So moving into launch,
Nice small section.
We wouldn't be launched without Excel pushing out like 10 or more formulas.
Outlook too.
I did not know that there were this many more formulas that Excel could keep pushing out, but apparently there are, and so they've launched them all. So Excel's got a bunch of new formulas in there. They don't really give us a lot of details about it, except for it's around arrays. So if you do a lot with formulas around arrays, and you use multiple features around formulas on arrays, then Excel is probably really something for you based on that. So one of the other ones that's cool, and then I'll let Adam take it away, is creating a flow from a Visio desktop application. I think this is a lot of fun. There was a period of time where they let you do this really fun thing where you could go into Visio and you could create this little thing, and then you pushed a button, and then it went into SharePoint Designer, and your workflow was already so kind of cute there. So this is, now we can use some of these business shapes. A lot of people really liked that. It was a way that you could visualize the workflows and different things like that. So now people can kind of do something similar. It lets people capture business process and input flow, and then chat and review the flows and different things like that inside of Microsoft Visio. So that is something that has been launched. So if that's something that's of interest to you, or if you were using one of those other features and then, pretty much right about as soon as they launched it, they killed the product, SharePoint Designer, or they didn't kill it, they retired it. I don't know what they did with it. There's a funeral. They have all of that. So that would be something that would be of interest to you. So, all right, I'll take a breather. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll go through a couple. And really, guys, Jen, as always, does a wonderful job of encapsulating all of the different changes that are going through. There's no way we're even going to scratch the surface of all the launch features. So I'm going to cover a couple that just particularly stood out to me, but I'll say in general, Outlook got probably tens, if not hundreds of updates. Everything from new changes to visuals inside of both Windows and Mac to some stability changes around the iOS. They even did some pretty cool stuff, like you can set you know how we all get the meeting reminders of, oh, hey, you have a meeting coming up? You can set stuff to automatically dismiss those. So it's not like, I'm sure Jen might have had where you come back from vacation for a week and you have 37 reminders of meetings you've missed, or, things that were on the calendar that you weren't going to. So stuff like that is kind of cool. But two in particular that jumped out to me. One of my all-time favorite features, and one of the things that I actually talk about almost every conference I go to, is if you go through and you are using notebooks and take meeting notes, there's awesome integration with OneNote and Outlook where you can basically go in and pull a meeting into OneNote, take notes in real time, and at the end of the meeting, there's some options for you to save it, or you potentially email it out and go and do things. things, where they're basically taking that a step further and making it a little bit more intelligent, where if you're going through and you're taking meeting notes and you're saving it to your OneDrive, which you will be if you're doing it inside of OneNote, it's actually going to intelligently think, oh, hey, cool, you're taking these meeting notes. I can go through and share these with the other people in the meeting if you'd like me to. So this actually helps me, and one of the reasons I think this is awesome, I have much more organized and better people that I work with than me. My team that I work with Jenn at Planet, as well as one of my colleagues that I work with around the managed services department, are all more organized and more put together than I am. And so they do things like take meeting notes and do things that are helpful. So once some of the stuff starts to hit some of the production, which it should be doing because it's launched, this is going to be something that's going to make it easier for me because I can lean on the success and the intelligence of my teammates to get some updated meeting notes and things like that I think is really, really cool. Another one that I'll go ahead and give a shout out for that I thought was kind of interesting when you're going through and looking at it, Azure Information Protection is actually coming to the DoD as well. You hear Jenn and I give shout outs to the DoD and GCC stuff when it's coming out just because we have a lot of clients there. Azure Information Protection is, you guys probably know, it's going through and doing classification labeling. It's looking for sensitive information types, stuff like that. This is definitely a win from the security and compliance side, so happy to see it.
Yeah, cool. I think some of the things coming to SharePoint are external sharing reports. So site admins are going to be able to see a list of items or see a report on all the items that are shared externally. So that's getting better. Also in OneDrive, we have the ability for, I guess, cleaning up or better manage the permissions UI. So it's easier to understand what are people getting access to and who has what level of access. So trying to clean up the permissions there. And I think it's really about usability at that point. Maybe not something's wrong with how the permissions are set, but just making it clear and making sure everyone understands and making it easy for everyone there. So they have some things that they've launched out in that space. Let's see. So then we also have lots of SharePoint stuff. There are lots of SharePoint, I would say, foundational things that got launched this month. So like SharePoint organizational news. And then it even says in the description, broadcast news and announcements across the organization. This is a set of features that will be released over the summer, right? So you're starting to see the foundations of certain features that they've already talked about, new and cool things that are coming. Well, we're starting to see the foundations of some of these things launched for future things that are going to come and build on top of them. So there were some things with newses. There were tons of things of pages that have finally, we can say, that are launched. The mega menu has launched for SharePoint hub sites. We have got the page background colors have launched, along with some of the footers and headers and different things like that that you could do with SharePoint pages. So a lot of the stuff that has been in that, it's not really in limbo, but it's been in that launching stage for a long time, and you're wondering, when is it coming in my tenant? When is it not? All of those pieces should now be in the tenants there. And so those are good, like the news sites. I'm a main news site, stuff like that. So all of that stuff around SharePoint pages is out there.
Yeah, a couple to just add on to that particularly jumped out to me that I thought was awesome. Sticky column headers, add columns between columns, column drag and drop, and one that kind of screams out to me, signals, which seems not necessarily that explanatory when you hear it at the top, but basically visual representations of stuff about like files and things like that inside of SharePoint. So does this file have DLP information in it? Is it checked out? Is it checked in? Is it being shared with anyone? A lot of that stuff is going to be put in visuals, little icons that kind of sit next to the information, so you don't have to go and previously, if I had someone ask me, oh hey, who all is this shared with? Well, outside of seeing that it is shared, I'd have to kind of dig in and go and do stuff. Making some of that stuff just easier to ingest at a glance, I think, is really cool from an admin perspective.
Yeah. There's another one that I think is really great, and I think it's really great because it's caught me a couple of times on accident. It's the SharePoint and OneDrive mass delete notification. And this one has caught me because James has been monitoring the security and odd behaviors on our Office 365 environment. And one morning I was actually trying to do something and I deleted our entire marketing site. I did not mean to delete all of the content from our marketing site.
Oh, looks like we have to take a break, guys. The marketing stuff's gone.
Yeah, and so he gave me a call and he was like, Jennifer, did you just mean to delete 500 files? And I'm like, James, no, I'm not deleting 500 files. And he was like, Jennifer, yes, you are. And I'm like, oh, crap. So we got it fixed. And so now, to help raise awareness, when someone does something like that, they're going to email the site owner or email the person and let them know, hey, did you mean to do this? So they're trying to reduce accidental oopses, with different things like that, and allow them to get them back and do all of that. So,
and let's be real, we're lucky there because James monitors the security updates. A lot of people, something like 86% of security notifications go unanswered. So,
yeah, and it was user error. I was cleaning something up in what I thought was a non-synced OneDrive location, and it clearly was a OneDrive synced location, and I clearly deleted all of our marketing files. So we were able to get them back. It was no problem. Way to go, James. But I'm very excited about things like that because those are the types of things that you don't want them to come back and say, oops. So those are some of the things coming to do there.
So another one, this is kind of small, but I love to see it. This kind of harps back to my days whenever I worked in frontline support at my first job out of college with IT. They are actually updating the clipboard experience and what you're going to have in Windows when you're going through and doing stuff to be more in line with, for lack of a better term, some of those like enterprise clipboards you see. Microsoft for a long time was very straightforward. You could copy paste, you could cut paste, and that's what you could do. The clipboard is now going to have some features where you can go through and have multiple things copied and go through and select stuff that you've done in the past and things like that. A small quality of life thing, but something that I think is really cool. If you've never messed around with stuff like that before and you see someone who has a program that lets them copy multiple things and have multiple pieces of information kind of go through and select what they want, it's really cool, and it really does make your day-to-day a lot easier. Imagine if you're going through and you're needing to, for me, probably most realization thing is, okay, well, I'm going through and doing testing on something. So I have a user ID I'm logging in that's not really my user ID, and I have a password that I need for that. Then I have my own information that I need, and I might be answering a work email at the same time. Being able to have multiple things like that stored where I can copy and paste out of and not have to, go and find the email where this information was, really, really cool. This will actually literally save me time day in and day out. So one of the small things that, probably is easy to overlook when you're looking at the roadmap, but something that I know I'm actually really looking forward to and think's really cool.
Yeah. So one thing that I've had for a little bit and I've been using for a while is the tracking flagged emails going into to-do. So if you have an email and you say flag it for follow-up and you say flag it for follow-up next week, flag it for follow-up today, it actually creates an item in to-do for you so that you can then track it there and the emails there and you can follow up and do that task. So that's launched and I think that is super, super, super helpful. Cool. All right, let's see. And now we're into Outlook. SharePoint Hub sites, we've done a lot of that. More Outlook. Teams calling for everyone. That's coming out. Same things that are there. I think SharePoint list in Microsoft Teams, that's a good one. So you can integrate finding and picking a SharePoint list without having to use cut and paste. So that's exciting. So you can find your SharePoint list and get that integration there. I think they're still doing some work on making it the same integration, so the lists look exactly the same and work exactly the same, but we're getting closer. So going there. Do you have some stuff on Windows Defender? It looks like a bunch of stuff came out there, and that sounds like your category.
Yeah, so there was a whole bunch of Windows Defender updates that come through. I'm not going to spend too much time kind of going through and digging through all the differences, but basically some pretty cool features going out around the security of individual workstations. You guys can check out the roadmap that we put together if you want to go through and actually figure out the specific things coming, but it's nice to see them continue to develop around there. Windows Defender and Windows Defender ATP is one of those things that as users are starting to get into endpoint protection, as they're trying to put actual protections on the computer, antivirus, things like that, you're starting to see more and more development and improvements in that area. And that alone makes me excited, just because if you look at some of the stuff right now that Microsoft has done around security and the cloud, when it first came out, it's kind of cool. They're developing some stuff and it's nice. And now it's literally best in the world. You go through and look at some stuff they're doing, and just bar none, they have features you can't see anywhere else. Windows Defender, to me, is kind of in that mid stage right now. If you looked at most enterprises, they were probably doing their own antivirus solution and going through and combining that with some of the stuff that you can do in the cloud. With some of these features that you're seeing coming out for Windows Defender, I see them starting to take the steps to really make it a world-class endpoint protection system and really bring it in line where it's going to become much more viable for Microsoft to literally be a one-stop shop for enterprises. So if that's something you're interested in, if that's something you've been dealing with, I encourage you to kind of go through and look at some of the updates coming out in the roadmap and kind of the direction they're going with development.
Yeah. So one of the other things we had was Microsoft Teams data loss prevention for chat messages, channels, and private conversations. So DLP and Microsoft Teams, that's another great thing there. Flow for SharePoint reminder. So this is a great one. When you have a SharePoint list or library that has dates, you can automatically very easily create a flow that says, remind me, and you can pick the number of days, remind me 3 days before this date, and it sends out a reminder for you. And it is a super, super easy flow to get set up and also super powerful. So I'm really excited to see that going there.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this as something I saw in Teams I thought was really cool, but live captions and subtitles in PowerPoint is pretty neat. I've seen this previewed for a while. This is one of the things that they like to kind of show off when they're going through and doing like conferences and stuff. But you can imagine if you're going through and you're doing a presentation, you can actually go through and actually do live captions or subtitles in PowerPoint that pick up what you're saying as you're going through and presenting in the PowerPoint, and basically gives a thing that people can read off of. For me as a remote user, I think this is just really cool. I do a ton of online meetings with people when I'm going through and doing it. And I can imagine even too being in a setting where I'm speaking at a conference or something like that, especially if they have online streams, is this being a really cool feature of going through and just making it available. I'm also probably going to take your thunder here a little bit, Jen, but we've been waiting for this forever. They officially launched on the roadmap of Microsoft Teams availability for GCC High.
Yay!
Oh my God, yay.
Yes. So they put Teams there, but they also put Outlook for Android, Outlook and for iOS, for GCC High and DoD customers, but they also put Project. Microsoft Project for, I think that was just GCC High customers though. And that is going to make that available so you can integrate with Project Online content. Yeah, that was just GCC High and Power Apps and Flow in GCC tenants.
Yeah.
So we are getting there, y'all. GCC High, and DoD are all getting some love on this week's roadmap, which is fantastic to hear. So I'm excited about all of those pieces there.
Yeah, nice to see it actually finally coming out. This is one of those things. Before I worked with government clients, I didn't realize how much the gap was. And it's kind of interesting because a lot of times that delay is you just have to get certain security approvals and certifications that take time. It's not that it wasn't necessarily ready or wasn't secure enough. It just has to get that like stamp of approval that it can go through and be used. So we're all really happy to see that going through and finally making it. And I know I have a lot of customers that are going to be pretty stoked about it.
Yes. I'm trying to see some of the other things are like Planner and To Do have some things that have finally launched. Planner, you can copy plans. That's there. The Outlook, iOS, Apple Watch enhancements have launched. I know Adam was really excited about those when they came. Schedule a meeting for the Outlook web with suggested times and replies. That's great. SharePoint Admin Experience Center updates are there, so that's great. Microsoft Planner for G4 for GCC and GCC High. So we're starting to see these things come up there as well again.
One of the things that definitely is key to my world that's now going out too, I do a ton of stuff with compliance. We've spoken about the compliance score before. My comment was, hey, look, they have a lot of scores already, but obviously this is great of what it's doing. Well, compliance score is now actually in public preview. So even if you weren't in first release, if you weren't out there, this is now something you can probably go out there and start experiencing and start looking into. So if you're a company out there that does need compliance work and you're sitting in the main Office 365, go through and check it out, because compliance score, which gives you a rating of how well you're doing around compliance, should be in public preview and something you can actually get your hands on now.
Yeah. All right, so SharePoint pages, this one's kind of important. Removal of the feedback button in preparation for the new feedback experience, plus removal of the circular pictures of members. So what is happening is they're doing away with the send feedback that's on the bottom of all of the SharePoint pages that exist right now. And they're going to be replacing it starting the week of February 18th with new experiences in the navigation that are going to allow people to send feedback through the user voice channel. So they're merging those two experiences. So I don't think it's anything really to care about too much. Most people did not like that anyway that I talked to. So just kind of know that that's coming, and you're going to see that there, and you're going to see the two things merged together there. You can now have up to 5,000 members in a team. So there you go. You can do that. And I think, are we reaching the end of, we're not reaching the end of launch.
No, but we've covered enough.
I think we've covered about all of the golden folders are officially launched. Yeah, so the rest of it is going to be small things there. I think we've covered all of the pretty big ones that is launched. All right, so I think finally the last category is rolling out. So these are the things that are rolling out to the tenants over time. So they might not be in your tenant yet, depending on where you're at in the cycle and where they're going. So we can kind of talk through some of those. My favorite one, and the one that I can't wait until we're in launched, is the Outlook on the Web recurring series room availability and different things like that. That's a tricky one when you're trying to schedule meetings there, because in all reality, everyone just schedules over everyone. So I like that. I also like the one with forms right below it for reuse of historical forms, because let's be honest, typically when I'm creating the forms, I'm creating the same forms over and over again for different groups of users and different things. So I'm excited about some of those. And now I'll actually be quiet and let Adam talk.
So one that I love that this is just amazing. I'm so happy it actually came out. So for the longest time, you have had a tenant-wide setting that you could set that was basically the maximum number of recipients per message. For the most part, this was by default set to 500. So this basically meant that you could not send mail to more than 500 users inside of your own tenant, period. This was due to try to prevent spamming and stuff like that. But this created some issues. I worked with some larger customers where they wanted to go through and send a message out to like all staff, and you'd actually have to send out like 12 messages out to all staff because all staff was more than 500 users, and it was really, really annoying. On top of that, it was one setting fits all. So you couldn't go through and say, okay, cool, well, Jen is a VP at our company. She has the ability to go through and send everybody, but I am not.
She doesn't want that power.
Yeah. But so going through and figuring out where you want to do and kind of where you want to draw the line, it was a one-size-fits-all solution. They basically are coming out with an option now that you could basically go through and per user or per mailbox is how Microsoft looks at it, set that number or create a policy and put a group of users into it anywhere from 1 to 1,000. Still not unlimited when you're talking about internal emails, so you still can't necessarily have the all-staff message that goes out the way that you want. But the ability to go through and customize this, I actually think is pretty cool. A lot of clients we work with maybe have an internal newsletter that they send out once a month. They want to go through through and send to their users. Well, if you're under 1,000 people now, you can actually do this in one go, manage it a little bit easier. And I'll say, okay, well, Tammy is the one who always sends out our newsletter. She's the head of marketing. We're going to go, or head of HR, maybe if it's an internal newsletter. We're going to let Tammy do that, but we don't want everyone else to have the ability. So you can go through there and pick and choose. Maybe say, hey, the most people I want my normal employees to send to internally is 50. But for the couple people I really want to pick and choose, I want them to be higher. I actually think this is really cool as someone who lived in the exchange world for a long time, and happy to see this customization coming. And I'll also say this is kind of really cool tech on the back end too. When you think about the type of rules and checks and balances that have to be in place to get this to work properly on the actual transport service of Exchange. So the nerd in me really thinks this one's neat as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that one too. All right. So some of the other things coming to Teams, you can pin apps to the left rail. And then there was also a legal hold for private channel messages. So they're getting in and doing some things with private channels and adding some additional controls with legal holds and different things there. So those were some of the things that were coming to Teams.
Yeah, there's some cool admin stuff too. Specifically, if you're using like Microsoft Information Protection or maybe using ATP, they're going to actually now have some reports that you can go through and get as a user. So URL threat protection report and compromised user reports, and then updates to the threat protection status report. These are basically two or really three different reports they're doing. That's going to give admins and your security team more of an insight. If you'd gone through and you'd purchased advanced threat protection in the past, you knew if links got through, you had this real-time link protection where it would actually go to you look at the link and it's a protection outlook.com link, and it would protect your users from going somewhere they shouldn't. But how many users were actually clicking on the links that they shouldn't in the first place? You didn't really know. You just knew, hey, I had this blanket security. I should be fine. It should take care of things. You actually are now getting reports that are going to give you some of those statistics. It will tell you who's doing what they shouldn't be doing. It's telling you how this add-on that you have is actually bringing you value. Honestly, I like this one just because this is a way to show the value of the features that you're going through and getting. It's a way for the security team to know what they're doing is working, and also know, like we all have this, right? It's like everyone has a Sam in their organization that's going to be going through, and Sam always clicks on the stuff he shouldn't, and Sam always does stuff he shouldn't. And now you're going to be able to say, hey, maybe we need to go and do another training course with Sam on what he should and shouldn't be doing. Things like that, which is just really cool to see. So I really like seeing some of these reports that they're coming out, and I think again, not necessarily so much of giving you information that's game changing, but for me as someone who works with a lot of IT departments and security departments that like these tools and want to go through and show the value to their bosses, their higher ups, being able to put some of this information, because information is power, right? Being able to put some of the statistics and information at their hands, I think is just really cool.
Cool. And the last one that I have for the day is one that I just think is fun, is the acronym answers are rolling out to Microsoft Search. So now you can go to Microsoft Search and navigate your company's often confusing alphabet search. I really want to see this one done in Microsoft Dog Food, because that's the company that I've worked with that has the most acronyms of any other company. So sometimes I'm on a call with them and I'm like, you're speaking a foreign language. What does that one mean? And what does that one mean? So I'm kind of excited to see that one. That would be the one that when that goes into dog food, it's going to be kind of funny. So that's actually a very, very valuable thing. We have some acronyms even internal to ours that when new people come, they have no idea what they necessarily mean. And we're so used to saying them that we don't always know to stop and think and explain them. So I think that's a really good addition there. So a small delighter. So do you have anything else or?
Yeah, so I like the idea of what they have where they say in forms introducing the file upload. I think this is actually really cool, right? So I'm gonna go nerdy on you guys for a second, so bear with me. I play video games. I'm sure that doesn't surprise anyone. One of the ways that I actually use forums in my day-to-day life when I go through and do stuff is if I'm needing to get information from like a group of people that I'm playing a video game with, I literally go through and make a form, make it available to anyone who has the internet, and let them go through and use it. So one of the games I play is World of Warcraft. I literally play with about 50 people, and we sometimes I'm our guild master, right? So sometimes I need to go through and say, hey, we're trying to
I
decide
need to
what we
go
want to
look
do.
that up in the acronym list. What's
Yep.
a guild master? Go ahead. Anyway.
I'm the poor sap that has to organize these 50 people. So basically, I go through, and sometimes I need to pull information from them, and I'll say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Let me know what you think. Or, hey, we're wanting to go through and do this. And sometimes people have information they want to share with me, or they want to share with the group as a whole. And right now, if that's a step in addition to this survey or this form that I'm sending out, they basically have to contact me and we have to get together. Well, how file upload works is it will basically give you a type of question that allows the responders to the form to upload files. So office documents, images, stuff like that. So one of the things we talked about when we wanted to go through and do it, this is really nerdy, so I apologize. You can develop like a tabard in the game. You can develop basically like a little digital thing that your character wears that everyone in your guild would wear. So when we were going through and talking about what we wanted that to look like, I kind of had some questions, but it was very limited when I was predefining the answers that they could give. So the cool thing is, if this feature was live whenever I was going through and doing this, they could actually go through and give an example or build out their own and then upload that file as an answer. They could go through and say, here's what I was thinking, here's what I'd like to see, something like that. And I actually think this feature is really cool. I use kind of a silly example of my real life with video games, but the ability for people to go through and respond to forum questions by actually uploading information, be it a picture or be it files or something like that.
Or like a resume or something like that,
exactly,
a collection of files. Yeah, very cool.
I think it gives an option to transform what Forms is currently doing and make it more valuable. And Jen hit the nail on the head. What if I have a forum out there that's looking for candidates to go through and do something? You want to update your resume, you want to update examples of your work, stuff like that. That's now actually going to be available, and I think kind of broadens the use of what you can use Forms for.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. Well, I think we have covered a ton of information for today's update.
And we covered like 3% of it, but yes, we have covered a ton.
So lots of information here. We will go ahead and get this posted online soon. I'll get this on the YouTube channel, and then I will get a file of some sort posted as well coming up. And if you have any questions, as always, shoot them our way, and we'll see you on next week's show. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.